Hey, welcome back to Limited Skills. I'm James.
And I'm Brandon.
And we're still drafting Hour of Devastation. Man, we need something more exciting there.
No, that is exciting. It's a really long hour, okay?
So, looking through this pack, we haven't got to the rare yet, so we don't know what you're taking.
few generic creatures I like. Oh!
Well, we got to the rare, so we know
Hour
what you're
of
taking.
Devastation. So yeah, that's an exciting card to take. It's incredibly good. For a first pick in a draft, unless there's some money foil behind it, that's really easily the card that you take.
Yeah, well, it's a mass board wipe. 5 damage, hits most things.
Also, it's going to be easier to force Bolus. I can justify it to myself now. I was confused for a little bit. I feel like they've done a lot of exile effects on similar style cards recently, that it makes creatures lose indestructible. So it can get around the original 5 gods, but not the new 3 gods.
Right.
Because it'll kill them, but they'll still come back.
They're the most frustrating creature to deal with in Limited.
The 3 new gods?
Yeah, because you might have an answer in your hand, but if it doesn't exile them, they're just going to recast it next turn.
Yeah, there's a few workarounds, and I feel like there's enough cards that you can do it, but if you don't have one when they play it, like even if you have to deal with it for 3 turns until you do draw that answer, you're so far behind.
Yeah, that could be enough to just ruin your draft, and then they kill you with vanilla 2/2s. But now we're on pick 3.
Yeah, I followed up with the Braid, one of the top removal choices.
So you've got some pretty strong red removal. You're only 2 picks in, but Puncturing Blow,
that's a really strong red removal also,
that
will even deal with those new gods, as you said. I just feel weird about taking 3rd removal, which I shouldn't. It's a tried and true strategy, just kill as much stuff as possible. I was just worried that then like red creatures were going to be dried up.
Oh, that's true. But if you take all the removal, I feel like that's the only reason you draft red creatures highly is because you got the good red removal. And if you take the good red removal, what does red have?
Red has Hazoret's Undying Fury, which is the true best first pick in the format. So we've talked about this almost every week about how we think it's often really bad and you have to have the right deck. Already, I've got 3 things that I would love to hit with it. So I'm real excited about thinking I'm going to pick this bad rare that I've always wanted to try, and I might actually have the deck that it's really good in.
Just try and build around it.
I wasn't trying to build around it, but I was just remembering I had it.
There's at least one point where I see you make a pick because the card that you want to pick doesn't get hit by Hazoret's.
Maybe that's probably true. I do remember considering that a few times. So Thorn Moloch is a fine 3-drop creature. So is the Scrapper. I probably prefer the Scrapper, but they're both pretty good 3-drop creatures.
Is there anything else in the pack worth picking?
Unsummon is really good. I don't think it's worth going into blue for. None of those others, some of those other cards were fine, but I don't think better than those 3-drop creatures.
Sure. Now here you gotta make a choice because I think, no, you don't. You just take the removal.
Yeah, so Struggle to Survive is perfectly... I couldn't even remember what Survive did. I had to actually turn it sideways to read it. Which, yes, I'm skilled enough. I can read a card sideways, but it's just easier. I don't care if people know I'm looking at a split card. Maybe if I were playing it competitive, I would think about that, but I don't care. Anyway, Struggle's perfectly fine on its own. Who cares about green? 3 mana removal that will deal with most things on curve.
We actually talked about Survive and how I have to turn my head sideways to read it because I'm not that good. It's a really sort of weird effect that's...
A lot of the other split cards at least have a little bit of synergy together, and and a couple others don't at all. Endless Sands I was real excited to see. It's generically fine, but whenever you get a board wipe, you could set up for the best time to use it turns in advance, which I got to do tonight. It was so fun. But back to the split cards, a lot of them have synergy where it's like, do the first thing and then the second thing is better, or the second thing works better because of it.
Yeah.
But that one seems really random, and I did, I think, figure out why the second thing happens, but it still just doesn't feel as flowing as the others. It's because you can, end of turn, kill their god, which was the thing I was excited about, or their Embalm or Eternalized creature, and then shuffle it back into their deck on your turn.
Okay.
So it does have some synergy, and it does let you get rid of some problems.
Sure. And now you have 2 of them, so...
Yeah, and that said, my intent at this point was I wasn't going into green necessarily, but it's worth it for struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So now there's a bunch of white here. Well, not a bunch, but like there's some alright white creatures here. The Steadfast Sentinel's fine. Vigilant Eternalize. That guy did some
If I
work
were
for me.
in black or white, I would probably take maybe the Dutiful Servants or the Sentinel, based on how my deck was. Or if I were in black, I would definitely take the Carrion Screecher.
Okay.
But I went with this Abomination because I didn't feel like any of those were worth pushing into a second color, and it could give me another creature if I needed.
Sure. I like that reason. Firebrand Archer's sweet because of all the removal you've got.
Yeah, Firebrand Archer has proven I've gotten to play it now in a very slow defensive deck, and it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play it in a fairly aggressive deck, and it was phenomenal.
Oh.
So it seems to be good in any deck. It's a very good 2-drop creature, recommended if you're in red at all times.
As long as you've got the support for it, right? I mean, you've got to have a few tricks to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're in a slower deck, your deck is naturally going to have that, and if you're in a faster deck, worst case scenario, you have a 2-drop creature.
Okay. And a red desert. Man, looks like everything's
I
coming out of
almost-
Millhouse.
Millhouse would probably be very good at Magic. Took that Dune Divider in hopes of spiting my roommate who hates that card. So yeah, I just got piles after piles of red removal. A couple red creatures, I guess. So at this point, I think everything I have that's red or colorless is playable. So I'm not committed to mono red, but I am committed to doing whatever the hell I want. My options are very open.
Committed to doing something good in red. You have an alright blue pick. You've got an incentive to go into green because of your split cards. And then you got that card that your roommate hates. So there isn't a ton here that's great in red. So what are you looking for?
Generically creatures, regardless of what color I'm going into. The Thorn Moloch is fine. I'm thinking because I do have the Aftermath on the red-green card, and I did take that Dune Diviner, which isn't phenomenal, but I like playing anyway. I decided to take the green rare there. Also, it can get me a desert back, and if I've got other sacrifice desert effects.
Sure.
The Ramonop Ruins would probably be pretty good. But then I see God Pharaoh's Gift.
I was kind of surprised to see this card get passed to you.
Yeah, that card is actually crazy good. I think when we first saw it, everyone was like, it seems too expensive. It's phenomenal. It gives the creature haste. It's a blowout card. Worth 7 mana. The only reason I was a little hesitant is, so far it's the only thing I picked that I won't hit on Hazoret's Undying Fury, which I am committed to playing at this point.
So I was trying to think why you would pass that card. And I can't think of an archetype that it fits into or it's not good.
Yeah, that's true. There may have been a foil rare, but they probably just undervalued it greatly.
Sure.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like, if you are an aggressive deck, that's a worthwhile late game bomb. And then if you're a slow deck, again, same. So I take this green guy knowing I don't have any other cats, and I'm not playing white, but I could maybe splash white easily.
Sure.
Whatever, I already took a bunch of 3-mana green creatures. Why not get more?
There's another Graven Abomination. There's some green. It seems like there's a little less red coming around in this direction.
Yeah, that Paincaster is very good, though. So with it being the only red card there, it's a happy pick.
I kind of got the feeling that white was a little open this draft.
Yeah, even in this pack, there's a chunk of stuff available. And I almost went white also. I ended up picking up a few random white things. After
Sure.
getting that Cat Lord, splashing into white also felt natural.
So I would probably want to take the Manticore Eternal, which looks like you are also considering.
If I'm going into white, okay, the Sun Scourge guy with Eternal Eyes is very good, but I knew my white was going to be like my second splash,
Right.
if anything, so the flashback, or the Eternal Eyes has double white in it.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't feel comfortable about getting value out of that. If I were going the 3 colors, maybe the Beneath the Sands, except green was also going to be a splash at this point. Like, all my best picks have been red.
Sure.
So I just went with the big red thing that I knew I'd be able to cast easier.
Okay. Another red removal. I think there was a red... Oh, yeah. The Sidewinder Naga or the Puncturing Blow.
Puncturing Blow, I think, is the best pick in this pack. but I've already got a lava removal, so I think I'd go with anything else. Probably that Sidewinder Naga. And that's just because I felt stressed for creatures, which is still kind of a bummer pick because I know at this point I already have a bunch of 3-drop creatures also. I really need 2 drops and maybe 4 drops.
Sure.
So that was a weird... the red removal was probably still the better pick there just because of mana curve.
Okay.
But I do like that Sidewinder Naga a lot. If I end up splashing into white, the Sandblast is good removal, but again, I'm kind of bogged down with that. Feral Prowler's okay, but Vizier of the True is the best creature in here, I think.
Feral Prowler is the one that lets you untap a permanent?
No, it's a 1/3 cat that lets you draw a card when it dies.
You mean a 3/1 cat?
A 1/3 cat.
It's a 1/3 cat?
Yeah. The 3 ones in the Almond cat.
Oh. That's the one that lets you untap.
Yes. So yeah, I go with this. I don't know. It just lets you get stuff through. It's when any creature exerts.
Okay.
Not just itself.
Which is very...
So if you attack with a team of exert stuff, they're all getting through.
Yeah.
Farm is worth it, but again, I don't need to splash a color for more removal at this point. So yeah, I go with this guy that I've decided is generically good in every deck. So I'm basically feeling Naya at this point.
All right.
I think probably just piling on more generic red beats.
Yeah,
more 3-drop creatures.
The Thorn Moloch is fine. Also, he's the only creature really that wouldn't be a splash.
Yeah.
Or the Manolith, huh? Because then that fixes your splash a little bit.
Yeah, I think if I were balanced between colors, the Mummy Paramount would be the better pick.
Okay.
But being less consistently able to drop that on turn 2 makes it worse.
Sure. And a 2/2 with first strike on attack is pretty solid. That's going to get through a lot of
Yeah, and
things.
it's got prowess as well.
Okay. So
And I actually have a lot of instant speed stuff.
And it's true.
Also, things with prowess work really well with Hazoret's Undying Fury.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get at least 1 trigger, maybe up to 5, who knows? This was just kind of a throwaway pick. I thought that was the best card in there that I maybe didn't want to deal with playing against.
This card's actually interesting because it lets you exile a card from defending player's graveyard. It's a 3/1, so they're probably going to block it, but it's going to trade with something most of the time, and if they don't block it, then you get to start picking away at their eternalized creatures.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I've still, even after drafting 2 of them and playing them in this deck, I still never used that ability.
Oh,
like
really?
It just hasn't. Like I played them on curve and they didn't have a creature in their graveyard yet.
Right.
Something to that effect. I do think it's worthwhile.
But I like that creature a lot, and I think it's a little bit different in terms of design for Wizards, because usually I feel like artifact creatures with abilities in a set that isn't themed around artifacts tend to be costed just a little bit more. But he seems fine at 3.
I think its weakness there is that it has the 1 toughness, and there is a lot of stuff that will just get rid of it in a heartbeat.
Okay, sure.
So the Shock is one of the top picks. I like Limits of Solidarity a lot, and then I didn't have to think about it anymore. It was just easy.
So you have he's Fervent, you have his Undying Fury, you have his Desert.
Unfortunately, my board wipe can kill him, which is weird.
I mean, it gets hot in the desert. That'd kill me. You look really excited.
What on Amonkhet? What's the difference between a jackal and a jackal god?
What?
Nothing. They're all dead.
Oh, too soon.
It might not be accurate too. I think Hazoret's the one that survived. Whatever.
I actually no.
I'll be a hilarious dad someday. Leave me alone.
You know, I don't know. I know they killed the blue one and the white one, and
I think that's why his is Hazoret's Undying Fury, and the other ones are last.
oh, and the black one got stabbed in the back. I don't remember. If you know the answer,
I mean, they all kind of got stabbed in the back.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, if you know the answer to what happens in this story, let us know, because we clearly don't.
So these last few picks, I've gotten sort of removal repeatedly. So this is creature that's sometimes removal. I have the instants and sorceries to support it consistently killing something, at least an early drop. And then I got a Limits of Solidarity, which is one of my favorite threaten effects, Because threaten effects are always good unless they don't have something you want to threaten, and then you just want to get rid of that card.
Yeah, I like that you said threaten effects are always good, because when you picked that, I made a mental note to talk about threaten effects and how they're not always good.
They're mostly good, but then when they're not good, then they are nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the weird thing with them. So that being a threaten effect with cycle on it, it's actually, I think, one of my favorite all-time of those effects.
Okay.
And there have been a lot of them to compare.
Sure. Oh, I had a question I wanted to ask about threaten effects. Do you think... Oh my god, that's so intense. Like, so you have one. One seems fine. Do you run more than that? I mean, this one has cycling, so maybe it's a bit of an outlier, but like, in a set that runs threaten effects that don't have cycling.
Still depends a lot on the set. So a lot of sets will have more or less sacrifice outlets than others, and depending on how you build your deck. If you can steal their thing, swing with it, and then sacrifice it to get other free value or get rid of the creature,
sure.
Then I could justify more. I think even in a deck like that, 3 is probably the most I'd want to play.
Okay.
Most decks, I think, 2, and then some of the decks, just 1.
Sure.
Sometimes it's hard to value how good it's going to be, but at the least, it's always they don't have that blocker this turn.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
And they might even have to block their own creature.
I was happy to get Onward to Victory because it's a weird combat trick that I'm already kind of splashing for.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to suggest that you take Onward just because it's an effect you don't really have in your deck yet.
Yeah, I don't really have huge creatures that it's going to give a whole lot, but I think a lot of times I'd probably get an extra 3
sure.
toughness.
And that could be enough.
I do have a couple, I think I had 2 creatures that had 5 power, so if I doubled it and gave it double strike, it can one-shot them.
Power, this was the pick where I saw you make the decision based on Hazard's Fury. Because you look at the Ceradon, which I think is objectively a better card, and instead you take Thresh Realization.
I think in my deck, what I needed for Mana Curve, yes, it would be the better card, and I did specifically choose that because I thought, God, I'm going to be sad if I flip that Ceradon. I'm going to cast Undying Fury.
So I
was happy to get another Limits of Solidarity.
Okay.
I think 1 is most of the time definite.
Sure.
2 is questionable, but I would probably run 4 of them if they had cycling.
Okay. Do you remember how many? Did you play both of them?
Yeah, I played both of them.
Oh, and then this was definitely...
Oh, yeah. So happy to get Foil Island. And then, look at how rewarded I am on this next pick. Immediately, Format Breaker.
Got there. So those were actual throwaway picks.
Shut up.
But, I mean, to be fair, there wasn't anything else.
They were, but there was nothing else. It wasn't like I was passing a really good comment or something. At this point, I know I'm going to have to make a bunch of really hard cuts already.
Yeah.
The last, 10 picks of this draft almost didn't matter. Not only do I sort of need 2-drops, though, so this was a surprising late thing. I think I need more 2-drops, but also it's a cat. For playing my Cat Lord, making it bigger.
And that could come up, maybe?
It could. But it didn't. So I was real committed into heavy red with a splash of green and a second splash, a lesser splash, if you will, for white. So I was going to go Naya primarily so I could get the cat tokens from the Cat Lord, play a couple more efficient creatures in removal. Then after I laid everything out, we plopped everything out on the table. I spent a lot of time agonizing over what to do, how many lands to run. And then I think when James was like, all right, you've got it figured out, I'm like, yeah. And he turns off the camera. I go, no. And then I realize I have 23 playable red and colorless cards, and I just don't have to worry about mana fixing at all. And I forced maybe a couple, I didn't get to play the Cat Lord, couple other things I didn't get to play that I was kind of excited to, but I had a really consistent just mono red deck. I didn't have to worry about colors at all. I splashed 1 plains and 1 forest for my aftermath effects, which were not super relevant.
As an aside here, they just started mowing the lawn outside. So sorry about that.
Not only cutting the grass, but cutting our hopes and dreams. Okay, so what we're showing you here is not actually the finished deck, even though it looks like I'm agonizing how to figure this out. Yeah, I went straight mono red, and it was very good. Just piled on the removal. Repeatedly through the night, I wanted to I wanted to cast Hazaret's Undying Fury so badly. I just never drew it at any of those times, or the one time I was holding it and could cast it, I had to cast the other spell to get out of a bind. I think this was the right deck for that card. Yep.
Okay, so I screwed up. There's some technical difficulties. There'll be a weird pause here. Brandon lost his train of thought. But he decided this was the right deck for
This
Hazaret's
was
Fury.
the right deck for Hazaret's Fury. I just didn't have the opportunity to play it. That was my last thought on that, I believe.
Oh.
I did get to cast the 7-mana artifact and eternalize creature after creature with haste and laugh in my opponent's face. I don't know if I mentioned, Onward to Victory never really mattered. I just never drew it or played it at an opportune time. I did play against my round 3 opponent. He had the Scarab God, and that was when it sort of clicked with me that Struggle to Survive is good for end of turn struggling their god, and then on your turn you can shuffle it back in.
Sure.
I kept 1 Plains and 1 Forest main deck all the time. I went up to 3 Forests in that just to consistently make sure I could do it if I needed to. Otherwise, I didn't have any sideboard options because I played every red card that was playable. I ended up playing the 2 Graven Abominations to get more creatures in there. But like I said, the triggers, while as I see their usefulness, weren't useful this time. And I did get a setup with the Desert removing my creatures for the board wipe, and that's also funny.
Cool.
Yeah, I just had a pile of good red stuff. It all synergized well. Hazaret won 2 games by himself. He didn't do anything cool. There was no real synergy. You just play Hazaret and they cry. And like I said, those 2-drop archers, I've got a lot of removal. So the previous week, I'd play them and then defensively just wait and sort of ping a bunch of damage through. But this time I could play them, play removal, kill their creature, trigger, hit them for 2, swing for 4, and they're super good aggressive as well.
Nice. How'd you end up doing?
I went 3-0, crushed
solid.
real heartily. I went 2-0, 2-0, and then I did lose one of the 3 games against the Scarab God, and then pulled it out in the 3rd one.
So you've been doing pretty well in Amonkhet so far.
Yeah,
Hour of Devastation.
It's been treating me well. I've been trying to figure out over the years like what key things. So I notice I have a trend of one set I'll not do real well for a while, and then another set it'll be easy and just naturally just win a bunch. And I don't know what that difference is. I don't think it's an aggressive versus slower set sort of thing. I'm trying to figure that out. Maybe more mid-rangey sets are what I'm best at.
Well, I guess we'll have to get to a set where you lose a whole bunch, and then we can go back and compare your picks.
Compare.
Man, I had another question I wanted to ask you.
Oh, I love answering questions.
But I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
So if you've gotten to cast Hazaret's Fury in your drafts, right? Hazaret's Fury? Undying Fury. If you've gotten to cast that red card, that bad red card, let us know in the comments, because we really want to know if it's good or not. And we might not get to.
Oh, I'll make it happen.
Next week, Brandon and I will both be doing Sealed. So I don't know what kind of...
What?
I don't know what kind of video we'll have up.
We'll shoot something
interesting.
We'll talk about some things.
Yeah, maybe we'll just talk about Sealed for a half an hour. It'll be fine. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you next week. You usually say bye and wave.
I don't want to.
All right, we're done. We're done.